The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and death. Simone Washington sat propped up against thin pillows, and 4 drip connected to her left arm, when Derek walked in carrying a manila envelope instead of flowers. She knew before he opened his mouth that her life was about to change in ways that had nothing to do with the cancer eating away at her organs. "I can't do this anymore," Derek said, not meeting her eyes. He stood near the door like he might need to run. "I can't watch you die, Simone. I just can't." Simone stared at her husband of 8 years. The man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health stood there in his expensive suit, the one she had surprised him with for his birthday last month, and pulled papers from the envelope. Her hands shook as she reached for them, the hospital bracelet sliding down her thin wrist. "Divorce papers?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "Derek, they just told me I have 6 months to live." 6 months. "I know, and I'm sorry, but I have to think about my future. About moving forward with my life." He finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes was worse than the cancer diagnosis. Relief. He looked relieved. "I've already talked to a lawyer. I'll make this easy for you. You just need to sign." Moving forward? Simone felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I'm lying here with stage 4 cancer and you're thinking about moving forward?" Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Look, I know this seems harsh, but staying would just be prolonging the inevitable. For both of us. You'll be gone in a few months anyway, and I'll be left picking up the pieces. This way we can both have closure." The machines monitoring Simone's vitals beeped steadily. She wanted to scream at him, to throw something, but her body felt too weak. Instead, she looked down at the papers in her hands. Her eyes scanned the legal language until she found what she was looking for. Derek wanted the house, the car, and was demanding she relinquish any claims to his future earnings. "There's someone else, isn't there?" Simone asked quietly. Derek's face flushed. "That's not relevant right now. This is about us, about what's best for both of us. Her name is Brittany, isn't it? Your assistant." Simone had suspected for months, the way he came home late smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, the way he guarded his phone like it held state secrets. "How long?" "Simone, don't make this harder than it needs to be." "How long, Derek?" He sighed, annoyed, like she was the one being unreasonable. 8 months. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is that we both move on with dignity. 8 months. Simone calculated backwards in her head. He had been cheating on her since last summer, through their anniversary dinner, through the Caribbean vacation they took in September, through every single lie he told her while looking into her eyes. And now, 3 days after doctors told her she was dying, he wanted out. What Derek didn't know, what nobody except her lawyer Patterson knew, was that 3 days before her diagnosis, Simone had signed the biggest contract of her life. Her tech patent, the one she had worked on for 5 years in their garage while Derek complained about the mess and the time she spent away from him, had been purchased by TechCorp Industries for $700 million. $700 million that would hit her account in 30 days. She had been planning to surprise Derek with the news after they confirmed all the details. She had imagined his face, his excitement, how they would celebrate together. Instead, she was watching him hand her divorce papers while she faced death. "I need time to think about this," Simone said, her voice steadier than she felt. "There's nothing to think about. You have 6 months, Simone. Do you really want to spend them fighting over this? Just sign the papers and let's end this cleanly." Derek glanced at his watch, an expensive piece she had given him for Christmas. "I have a meeting in an hour. I can wait while you sign." Simone looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. This man who she had loved, who she had built a life with, who she had supported through graduate school and 2 job changes, was standing in her hospital room treating her death sentence like an inconvenience. The betrayal cut deeper than any diagnosis could. "Get out," she said quietly. "Simone, be reasonable. We need to." "I said get out." Her voice rose, triggering the machines to beep faster. "Get out before I call security." Derek backed toward the door, clutching his envelope. "Fine. But you'll need to deal with this eventually. My lawyer will be in touch." He paused at the door. "I'm sorry it had to end this way." He left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the hospital corridor. Simone sat in the silence that followed, the divorce papers crumpled in her fists. Through her window, she could see the city skyline, the sun setting behind buildings where people were living normal lives. Lives that hadn't just been torn apart. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. A text from Nicole, her best friend. "How did the doctor appointment go? Call me when you can." Simone couldn't bring herself to respond. How could she explain that in 1 week she had signed a $700 million contract, been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and had her husband serve her with divorce papers. It sounded like a bad movie plot, not real life. A nurse came in to check her vitals, a kind woman named Teresa who had been taking care of her since she was admitted. "Everything okay, honey? Your heart rate is elevated." "My husband just asked me for a divorce," Simone said, the words feeling surreal as she spoke them. Teresa's face fell. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Some people just can't handle the hard stuff." She adjusted Simone's fore. "But you're stronger than you think. I can tell. You're going to get through this." Simone wasn't sure if Teresa meant the cancer or the divorce, but she nodded anyway. The nurse left her alone again and Simone picked up her phone. She scrolled through Derek's social media, something she had avoided doing for months. His latest post was from an hour ago, a picture of him and Brittany at a restaurant, both smiling at the camera. The caption read, "New beginnings." He had posted it while she was lying in a hospital bed. While she was dying. While he was asking her for a divorce. Simone felt something shift inside her. The tears she had been holding back dried up, replaced by something colder, harder. She thought about the $700 million sitting in an account with only her name on it. She thought about Derek's demands that she sign away any claims to his future earnings, not knowing he was signing away claims to hers. She picked up the divorce papers again and read through them carefully. Derek's lawyer had been thorough, making sure Derek would be free and clear of any financial obligations to her. The papers stated that both parties agreed to separate with their own assets and waived any claims to the other's future income or earnings. A small smile crossed Simone's face for the first time since entering the hospital. Derek thought he was protecting his mediocre salary from her medical bills. He had no idea what he was signing away. She reached for the phone and called Patterson, her lawyer. He answered on the second ring. "Simone? How are you feeling?" "I need you to look at something," she said. "Divorce papers. Derek just served them to me in the hospital." There was a long pause. "He served you divorce papers while you're in the hospital? After a terminal diagnosis?" "Yes. And Patterson, I want you to read every word carefully. Then I want you to help me sign them." "Simone, are you sure? Given the circumstances, we could fight this." "We could." "I'm not fighting anything," Simone interrupted. "I'm going to give him exactly what he wants. Can you come to the hospital tomorrow?" "Of course. But Simone, the contract money. If you sign these papers without disclosing." "That's exactly what I'm doing," she said firmly. "Derek wants a clean break. Let's give him one." After hanging up, Simone lay back against her pillows and closed her eyes. 6 months to live, the doctors had said. 6 months to watch Derek move on with his life while she faded away. That's what he expected. But Simone Washington had never been good at meeting expectations. And if she was going to die, she was going to make sure Derek regretted ever walking into that hospital room. The machines beeped steadily beside her, counting down heartbeats, counting down time. But for the first time since hearing her diagnosis, Simone felt something other than fear. She felt determined. Let Derek have his new beginning. She was about to show him what an ending really looked like. Patterson arrived at the hospital the next morning carrying his briefcase and a cup of coffee for Simone. He was a thin man in his 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had handled the TechCorp contract negotiations, turning what could have been a decent deal into a fortune that would change generations. "I read the papers Derek sent over," Patterson said, settling into the chair beside her bed. "Simone, this is unconscionable. He's trying to divorce you while you're terminally ill, and these terms are insulting." Simone sipped the coffee he brought her, grateful for the taste of something other than hospital food. "What are the terms exactly?" Patterson pulled out his tablet and scrolled through the document. "He wants the house, which is in both your names, but he put down the initial deposit. He wants the car, the one you bought together last year. He's willing to take on the mortgage and car payments in exchange for you releasing all claims to his pension, his future earnings, and any joint assets. What does he think I have? According to this, he assumes you have your personal savings, about $30,000, and whatever remains of your retirement account. He's offering to cover your medical expenses up until the divorce is final, which his lawyer estimates will be in 6 weeks. After that, you're on your own." Simone laughed bitterly. How generous of him. Cover my medical expenses for 6 weeks when I have 6 months to live. "There's more," Patterson said, his voice tight with anger. "He's demanding that you sign a clause stating that you waive any claims to his future earnings or assets acquired after the date of separation. His lawyer clearly thinks you're going to try to come after him for medical bills." "He has no idea, does he?" Simone asked. "None whatsoever. The TechCorp contract hasn't been publicly announced yet. It won't be for another 2 weeks. The money hits your account in 23 days. Patterson leaned forward. Simone, we could fight this. We could make him pay for this betrayal. The courts would crucify him for divorcing his dying wife. No, Simone said firmly. I want you to accept his terms. Simone. All of them. The house, the car, the waiver of future claims. I want you to agree to everything he's asking for. Patterson stared at her like she had lost her mind. You want to give him everything? After what he's done? I want him to think he's won, Simone said. I want him to sign those papers believing he's walked away clean. That clause about waiving claims to future earnings? That goes both ways, doesn't it? Understanding dawned in Patterson's eyes. It does. If you both agree to walk away with your separate assets and waive claims to future income, then whatever I earn after our separation date is mine alone, and whatever he earns is his alone. No claims either way. The separation date he proposed is today, Patterson said slowly. The day you sign the papers. Perfect. So anything that happens after today is separate. The TechCorp money doesn't hit my account for 23 days. But the contract was signed before our separation. Technically, the money is from a contract signed during your marriage, but if he's waiving all claims to your future earnings and assets acquired after separation. Patterson smiled. He's waiving his right to even ask about it. Exactly. Derek wants a clean break. Let's give him one. Patterson pulled out a red pen and began marking up the papers. I'll need to add some language to make sure this is ironclad. I want it clear that both parties are walking away with their individual assets and waiving any claims to income, earnings, or assets acquired by the other party after the separation date, regardless of when contracts were signed or agreements were made. Will Derek's lawyer agree to that? Are you kidding? They think they're protecting his $20,000 a year pension. They'll be thrilled. They get to close this case fast and move on. Patterson worked for another hour, making careful notes and adjustments. I'll send this over to his lawyer today. Given how eager Derek seems to be to move forward, I imagine we'll have a response by tomorrow. Good. I want this done before I start treatment. Patterson's expression softened. How are you feeling? Really? Tired? Scared? Angry? Simone looked out the window at the city below. But also strangely determined. I have 6 months, maybe less. I'm not spending it fighting Derek in court. I'm spending it living. With $700 million, Patterson added. With $700 million, Simone agreed. And Derek will never see a penny of it. Patterson packed up his briefcase and stood. I'll get this filed immediately. Simone, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this with remarkable grace. I don't feel graceful. I feel betrayed. That's valid. But you're turning that betrayal into strategy. That takes strength. He paused at the door. Call me if you need anything. Day or night. I mean that. After he left, Simone's phone rang. Nicole's name flashed on the screen. Finally. Nicole's voice came through before Simone could say hello. I've been calling for 2 days. What's going on? How did the tests come back? Simone took a breath. Can you come to the hospital? I'm already in the parking lot. I've been here for an hour, but the nurse said you weren't taking visitors. I'll be right up. 5 minutes later, Nicole burst through the door. She was a tall woman with short natural hair and an energy that filled any room she entered. She had been Simone's best friend since college, through bad boyfriends and good jobs, through wedding planning and disappointments. She took one look at Simone's face and rushed to her bedside. What happened? I have cancer. Stage 4. 6 months to live, maybe less. Nicole's face crumpled. She grabbed Simone's hand and held it tight. No, that can't be right. Did you get a second opinion? There are other doctors, specialists. I've seen 3 doctors. They all say the same thing. It's in my liver, my lungs, my lymph nodes. It's everywhere, Nicole. Tears streamed down Nicole's face. This can't be happening. You're only 34. You're healthy. You run marathons. I used to run marathons. Past tense. Simone squeezed her friend's hand. There's more. How can there possibly be more? Derek served me with divorce papers yesterday. Nicole's tears stopped instantly, replaced by an expression of pure rage. He what? He came to the hospital and asked me for a divorce. He's been having an affair with his assistant for 8 months. He wants to move on with his life before I die. I'm going to kill him, Nicole said flatly. I'm serious, Simone. I'm going to kill him and bury him somewhere they'll never find the body. Despite everything, Simone laughed. You'll do no such thing. But there's something else you need to know. She lowered her voice even though they were alone. 3 days before my diagnosis, I signed a contract. TechCorp bought my patent. The AI diagnostic software? Simone, that's amazing. How much? $700 million. Nicole's mouth fell open. She sat down hard in the chair. 700 million. With an M. With an M. The money transfers in 23 days. And Derek has no idea. He thinks I have $30,000 in savings and a pile of medical bills. So when you sign the divorce papers, he walks away thinking he dodged a financial bullet, and I walk away with enough money to try every experimental treatment in the world. Nicole's expression shifted from shock to understanding to something that looked like pride. You're going to let him have the house and the car, aren't you? You're going to let him think he won. I'm going to do exactly that. That's cold, Simone. That's ice cold. Nicole smiled slowly. I love it. What can I do to help? I need to find an apartment. Something small and cheap, the kind of place Derek would expect me to end up in. I start chemotherapy next week, and I need somewhere to recover that isn't tainted with memories of him. Done. I'll start looking today. Nicole pulled out her phone and started making notes. What else? I need you to be patient with me. I'm going to be sick. Really sick. The doctors say the treatment is aggressive, and with my body already compromised. Simone's voice cracked. I don't know if I'm going to make it, Nicole. Don't talk like that. You're going to make it because you're too stubborn to die. You're going to live long enough to see Derek's face when he realizes what he gave up. Nicole's voice was fierce. You're going to live because you have too much life left to live. Simone wanted to believe her. She wanted to think that determination alone could beat cancer, but she had seen the scans. She had seen the tumor markers in her blood work. She knew what the doctors weren't saying outright. That 6 months was optimistic. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. I know. But you're not alone. Whatever happens, I'm here. Every doctor's appointment, every treatment, every bad day. I'm here. They sat together in silence, holding hands, while the machines beeped and the hospital moved around them. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, people going to work and school and home, unaware that Simone's world had tilted off its axis. Patterson called that afternoon. Derek's lawyer agreed to all the terms. They're thrilled. They think they got everything they wanted. We can sign tomorrow if you're up for it. I'm up for it, Simone said. Let's end this marriage. One more thing, Patterson added. I added a clause that neither party can make claims against the other's estate after death. Derek's lawyer insisted on it. They want to make sure that when you die, there's no chance your family could come after his assets. How considerate of them. They have no idea they just protected your entire fortune from any claim Derek might have made. Once you sign these papers, he has no legal standing to touch your money, even if he found out about it. Good. That's exactly what I want. The next day, Derek arrived at the hospital with his lawyer, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Henderson. They set up in the hospital's conference room, papers spread across the table. Derek wouldn't meet Simone's eyes as Patterson reviewed each section. My client is agreeing to all terms, Patterson said formally. Mrs. Washington will retain her personal savings and retirement accounts. Mr. Washington will take ownership of the marital home and vehicle, assuming all associated debts. Both parties agree to waive any claims to the other's future earnings, assets, or income acquired after the date of separation, which is established as today's date. That's correct, Mrs. Henderson said. Mr. Washington wants to ensure a clean break with no future financial entanglements. My client wants the same, Patterson said dryly. Simone signed her name on each page, her hands surprisingly steady. Derek signed his pages without reading them carefully, eager to be done. When it was finished, Mrs. Henderson gathered the papers and stood. The divorce will be final in 6 weeks, pending the waiting period required by law. After that, both parties are free to move forward with their lives. Derek finally looked at Simone. I hope you find peace, he said, and he actually sounded like he meant it, like he was doing her a favor. I hope you get exactly what you deserve, Simone replied. Derek and his lawyer left. Patterson waited until the door closed behind them before turning to Simone with a grim smile. That man just made the biggest mistake of his life. Yes, he did, Simone agreed. Now let's make sure I live long enough to watch him realize it. The apartment Nicole found was on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. The elevator worked half the time, the walls needed paint, and the heating system made concerning noises. It was perfect. Derek would expect nothing less. Simone moved in 3 days after signing the divorce papers. Nicole helped her carry boxes up the narrow stairs, mostly containing clothes and books. Everything else, all the furniture and decorations from the house she had shared with Derek, stayed behind. She didn't want any of it. Every piece held memories she needed to leave behind. "This place is depressing," Nicole said, looking around the bare apartment. It had one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room with a window that overlooked a parking lot. "It's temporary," Simone reminded her. "Once the treatment is done, if I make it, I'll find something better." "When you make it," Nicole corrected. "When, not if." They spent the afternoon making the space livable. Nicole bought cheap furniture from discount stores. A bed frame, a small couch, a table with 2 chairs. Simone used some of her savings to stock the kitchen and buy basic necessities. To anyone looking, she appeared to be a dying woman setting up her final residence. They had no idea she had $700 million about to land in her account. The money transferred on schedule, 20 days after she signed the divorce papers. Simone was lying on her new couch, too weak to move after her first round of chemotherapy, when Patterson called. "It's done. $700 million minus taxes and fees. You're looking at about $420 million in your account." Simone closed her eyes. Even after taxes, it was more money than she could comprehend. Money that could buy the best doctors, the most advanced treatments, and maybe, just maybe, buy her more time. "Thank you, Patterson. I've set up the accounts we discussed. Most of it is in trusts and investments. You have access to whatever you need for medical care and living expenses. And Simone, I want you to know that TechCorp is very excited about the official announcement next week. They want you there if you're feeling up to it." "I'll try," Simone said, though she couldn't imagine feeling up to anything. The chemotherapy had hit her like a truck. She was constantly nauseous, exhausted beyond belief, and her hair was already starting to fall out in clumps. The announcement happened without her. Simone watched from her couch as TechCorp's CEO stood on stage and revealed the revolutionary AI diagnostic software that would change healthcare forever. He talked about the brilliant mind behind it, about Simone Washington, who had spent 5 years developing an algorithm that could detect diseases from medical scans with 98% accuracy. Her phone exploded with messages. Old colleagues, friends from college, distant relatives she hadn't spoken to in years, all congratulating her. She ignored most of them. The only person she talked to was Nicole, who came over every day after work to make sure she ate something and hadn't given up. "You made the news," Nicole said one evening, showing her a business magazine. Simone's picture was on the cover, a professional photo from 2 years ago when she still looked healthy. The headline read, "The $700 million Mind, How Simone Washington Changed Healthcare Forever." "Derek must have seen this by now," Simone said. "Oh, he's seen it? I may have driven by the house yesterday. He was out front, screaming into his phone." Nicole grinned. "It was beautiful. You didn't." "I absolutely did. And I took pictures." Nicole showed her phone screen. Derek looked furious in the photo, his face red, his hands gesturing wildly. The best part? Brittany was loading boxes into her car. "Looks like trouble in paradise." Simone felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it was quickly overshadowed by another wave of nausea. She barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. Nicole held her hair back, what little remained of it, and helped her back to the couch afterward. "I need to get you better doctors," Nicole said. "With your money, you could have the best oncologists in the world." "I already do," Simone admitted. "Patterson helped me find them. I'm seeing Dr. Chen at Memorial Cancer Center. He's one of the top researchers in experimental treatments." "When do you see him?" "Tomorrow. He wants to discuss some new trials I might qualify for." Dr. Robert Chen was a serious man in his 40s who looked at Simone's scans with the focus of someone examining priceless art. His office was nothing like the cold hospital room she had grown used to. It was warm and filled with plants, and he offered her tea before they talked about her death sentence. "Your cancer is aggressive," he said, "but you're young and you were healthy before diagnosis. That works in your favor. There's a trial I want you to consider. It combines immunotherapy with a targeted drug that attacks the specific mutation your cancer has." "What are the success rates?" "Honestly, it's new enough that we don't have long-term data. But in the short term, we're seeing about 40% of patients achieve significant reduction in tumor size. Some have gone into complete remission. And the other 60%? The treatment doesn't work, or they experience side effects severe enough that they have to stop." Dr. Chin set down his tea. "I'm not going to lie to you, Mrs. Washington. This is your best shot, but it's still a long shot. Better than zero shot, Simone said. When can I start? The new treatment was worse than the standard chemotherapy. Simone spent 3 weeks in the hospital fighting infections and side effects that left her wondering if dying might actually be easier. Nicole stayed with her most nights, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair and advocating fiercely with every nurse and doctor who came through the door. You're not giving up, Nicole said one particularly bad night when Simone was crying from pain and exhaustion. You didn't survive Derek's betrayal and sign a $700 million contract just to die in a hospital bed. You're going to live, and you're going to make him regret ever walking away. I'm so tired, Nicole. I know, but you're also strong. Stronger than you think. While Simone fought for her life in the hospital, Derek's life was falling apart in real time on social media. Nicole gleefully showed her the updates during visiting hours. He quit his job, Nicole reported. Or got fired. The story keeps changing. Either way, he's unemployed. And Brittany? Left him 2 weeks ago. Apparently, she thought she was moving in with a man about to inherit his dying wife's fortune. When she found out about your contract and realized he'd signed away any claim to it, she was gone within 24 hours. Simone should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt nothing. She was too sick to care about Derek's problems, too focused on surviving each day to worry about revenge. 6 months after her diagnosis, the date the first doctors had given her to live, Simone was still alive. Barely but alive. She had lost all her hair, 40 pounds, and any illusions about life being fair. But she was breathing. Dr. Chin ran new scans and called her into his office with an expression she couldn't read. Your tumors have shrunk, he said. Significantly. The one in your liver is half the size it was. The spots in your lungs are almost gone. Simone stared at him. I'm not dying? You're still very sick. You have a long road ahead. But Mrs. Washington, you're not dying this month. Maybe not even this year. He smiled for the first time since she'd met him. I'd say you have a fighting chance. A fighting chance. It wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't even a promise. But it was more than she had expected when Derek served her with divorce papers in a hospital room 6 months ago. So what now? Simone asked. Now we keep fighting. More treatment, more monitoring, more hoping that your body keeps responding. And Mrs. Washington? Start thinking about what you want to do with your life when you beat this thing. When not if. The same thing Nicole kept saying. Simone wanted to believe them. She wanted to think that she could survive, that she could build a life beyond cancer and divorce and betrayal. That night, alone in her apartment for the first time in weeks, Simone opened her laptop. She hadn't touched it since before her diagnosis, too sick to think about work or business. But now, with the possibility of a future stretching before her, she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in months. Determination. She started researching. Not about cancer or treatment, but about business. About building something meaningful with the fortune she had earned. About creating a legacy that mattered more than revenge. By morning, she had the beginnings of a plan. If she survived this, if she beat the odds and lived, she wasn't going to waste her second chance. She was going to build something that helped people. Something that turned her pain into purpose. But first, she had to live long enough to see it through. 1 year after her diagnosis, Simone stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She was thin, her skin had a grayish tone from months of treatment, and her scalp was covered with patchy fuzz where her hair had started to grow back. But she was alive. And according to Dr. Chen's latest scans, her cancer was in remission. It's remarkable, he had said that morning, looking at the screens displaying her insides. The tumors are gone. Completely gone. We're still going to monitor you closely, and there's always a chance it could come back, but Mrs. Washington, you beat it. Simone had cried in his office, ugly tears that she couldn't control. She had spent 12 months convinced she was dying, living each day like it might be her last, and now someone was telling her she might have a future. The relief was overwhelming. Nicole was waiting when she left the doctor's office, having taken the afternoon off work to be there for the results. She took one look at Simone's face and knew. You're in remission, Nicole said, and then she was crying too. They stood in the hospital parking lot, hugging and crying and laughing all at once, while other people walked past them with concerned looks. I can't believe it, Simone whispered. I really thought I was going to die. I never did, Nicole lied, and they both knew it was a lie, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that Simone had survived. She had beaten cancer and Derek's betrayal and every odds stacked against her. They went out to dinner to celebrate Simone's first real meal at a restaurant in months. She could only eat a few bites before feeling full. Her stomach shrunk from months of barely eating, but it was the best food she had ever tasted. They toasted with sparkling water, and Nicole made grand plans for everything they would do now that Simone was going to live. "First, we're getting you out of that depressing apartment," Nicole declared. "You're a millionaire several hundred times over. You should be living somewhere fabulous." "Not yet," Simone said. "I need to build my company first. I need to do something meaningful with this money." "Tech Vision Solutions," Nicole said. "You've been working on it for months. When are you going to make it official?" "Soon. I've been meeting with Patterson about the business structure. I want to launch it right." "What about Derek? Have you heard from him?" Simone shook her head. "He's tried to call me about 50 times. His lawyer sent letters. Patterson told them all the same thing. The divorce is final, the settlement is binding, and I have no interest in communicating with him." "Good. He deserves to suffer." Nicole took a sip of her drink. "I heard through the grapevine that he's working at a car dealership now, selling used cars." "How the mighty have fallen," Simone said, and she was surprised to find she felt very little about it. A year ago she would have wanted him to hurt the way he hurt her. Now she just wanted to move forward. The truth was, Derek had already suffered more than she could have planned. When news of Simone's contract broke, the story of their divorce had leaked too. Social media had crucified him. His face was all over gossip sites with headlines like, "Husband divorces dying wife, loses $700 million, and the worst ex in America." He had lost his job when the company decided they didn't want someone with such negative publicity representing them. Brittany had left him the moment she realized there was no money. His friends had sided with Simone, appalled by his behavior. Derek had destroyed his own life without Simone having to do anything at all. And that, she realized, was the best revenge. Letting him face the consequences of his own choices. 2 weeks later, Derek tried a different approach. He showed up at Simone's apartment building, waiting outside until she came home from a doctor's appointment. Nicole was with her and she immediately stepped between them. "You need to leave," Nicole said firmly. "Simone, please, I just need 5 minutes," Derek said. "You look terrible." His hair was too long, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. "Please." "I have nothing to say to you," Simone said, moving toward the building entrance. "I know I made a mistake. I know I was wrong." Derek's voice cracked. "But Simone, that money was earned during our marriage. I deserve half of it. My lawyer says." "Your lawyer is wrong," Simone interrupted. "You signed papers waiving any claim to my future earnings. Those papers are legally binding. Patterson made sure of it. You tricked me. You knew about the contract when you signed the divorce papers." "I tricked you?" Simone laughed, a harsh sound. "You served me divorce papers while I was dying because you wanted to be free to be with your girlfriend. You took the house and the car and everything we built together. And you made sure I signed away any claims to your future earnings, remember? It worked both ways, Derek. That's not fair. You weren't honest with me. Neither were you. You cheated on me for 8 months. You abandoned me when I had cancer. You treated my death sentence like an inconvenience." Simone's voice rose. "I don't owe you honesty or fairness or anything else. The divorce is final. Move on with your life like you told me to move on with mine." "Simone, please. I'm drowning in debt. I lost my job. Brittany left me. I can't even afford the mortgage on the house anymore. I'm about to lose everything." "That's not my problem," Simone said coldly. "You made your choices. Now live with them." She walked past him into the building, Nicole close behind her. Derek called after her, pleading, but Simone didn't look back. The door closed behind them, cutting off his voice. "Are you okay?" Nicole asked in the elevator. "I'm fine. Actually, I feel great." Simone smiled. "I expected seeing him would hurt, but all I feel is relief. Relief that I'm not married to him anymore. Relief that I don't have to spend my life with someone so selfish." "He looked awful," Nicole observed. "He did. And I don't feel bad about it. Is that terrible? It's called consequences. He's learning what happens when you treat people like garbage." In her apartment, Simone opened her laptop and looked at the business plan she had been developing. Tech Vision Solutions was almost ready to launch. She had been working on it in secret, building the foundation while she recovered. The company would use her AI technology to develop affordable diagnostic tools for underserved communities. But there was another project she wanted to add. Something personal. She opened a new document and titled it, Hope Rising Foundation. The foundation would provide free or low-cost experimental treatments for cancer patients who couldn't afford them. Patients like she would have been if she hadn't had that contract money. Patients who deserved a fighting chance regardless of their bank account. Nicole came over with takeout that evening and found Simone surrounded by papers, making notes and sketches. "What's all this?" "I'm starting a foundation. Hope Rising. It's going to help cancer patients access experimental treatments." Simone looked up at her friend. "I almost died, Nicole. Not just from cancer but from hopelessness. When Derek left me when I thought I had nothing, I wanted to give up. But I got lucky. I had money I didn't even know was coming. Most people don't get that lucky." "So you're going to be their luck," Nicole said softly. "Something like that. I figure if I can use this money to save even one person from feeling as hopeless as I felt, it's worth it." "Have I mentioned lately that you're kind of amazing?" "You could mention it more often," Simone joked. They spent the evening working on the foundation plans together. Nicole, who had a background in nonprofit management, offered to help set it up. By midnight they had a rough outline of how it would work. "We should get Dr. Chin involved," Nicole suggested. "He could help identify patients who would benefit most from experimental treatments." "That's perfect. I'll talk to him next week." Simone stretched, feeling the pull of tired muscles. She was still weak, still recovering, but every day she felt a little stronger, a little more alive. That night, she dreamed about the future for the first time. Not the future she had imagined with Derek, with kids and a white picket fence and boring Sunday mornings. A bigger future. A future where she built something that mattered, where her pain had purpose. She woke up with the sun streaming through her window and reached for her phone. There were missed calls from Derek and messages from his lawyer. She deleted them all without reading them. Then she called Patterson. "I'm ready to launch Tech Vision," she said. "And I want to start a foundation. How soon can we make it happen?" "For you? As soon as you want. Let's make it official." Simone smiled. 1 year ago, she had been lying in a hospital bed, convinced she was dying, watching her husband walk away. Now she was planning a future she never thought she'd have. The best revenge, she was learning, wasn't making Derek suffer. It was building a life so good that his betrayal became nothing more than a footnote in her story. The tech conference hall was packed with reporters, investors, and industry leaders. Simone stood backstage, her hands shaking slightly as she adjusted the silk scarf she wore to hide the thinness of her neck. Her hair had grown back in soft curls, different from the straight hair she'd had before, but she liked it better. It made her look like a different person. She was a different person. "You ready?" Patterson asked, appearing beside her with a bottle of water. "No. But I'm doing it anyway. That's the spirit." He smiled. "Simone, what you've built in the last year is extraordinary. Tech Vision Solutions is going to change the world. You should be proud." "I will be. After I don't throw up on stage." Patterson laughed. "You're going to be fine. Just remember, you've already beaten the hardest thing. This is just talking." The introduction was happening. Simone heard her name echoing through the speakers, heard the applause, and took a deep breath. Then she walked out onto the stage. The lights were bright, almost blinding. She couldn't see faces in the crowd, just shapes and shadows. But she could feel their attention, hundreds of people watching her, waiting to hear what she had to say. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "My name is Simone Washington, and a year ago, I was supposed to be dead." The room went silent. Simone clicked to the first slide, a hospital photo Nicole had taken of her mid-treatment, bald and thin and barely alive. "This was me during chemotherapy. I had stage 4 cancer. Multiple organs affected. 6 months to live, maybe less. The doctors were honest with me. They said I was dying." She clicked to the next slide, showing her latest scan results. Clear. No evidence of disease. "This was me 3 weeks ago. In remission. Against all odds, I survived. But I survived because I had access to experimental treatments that most people can't afford. I survived because I had money and resources and the best doctors in the world. That's not fair. And that's what I'm here to change." The next slides showed Tech Vision's technology, the AI diagnostic software that could detect diseases earlier and more accurately than traditional methods. She explained how it worked, how it could save lives, how it was already being implemented in hospitals across the country. "But technology alone isn't enough," Simone continued. "Which is why I'm also announcing the Hope Rising Foundation. Starting today, we're providing grants for cancer patients who can't afford experimental treatments. We're partnering with research hospitals to expand clinical trials. We're making sure that survival isn't just for people who can afford it." The applause was deafening. Simone talked for another 30 minutes, answering questions and explaining her vision. When she finally walked off stage, her legs were shaking and she felt like she might collapse. Nicole was waiting in the wings, grinning so wide it looked painful. "You killed it. That was perfect. I think I'm going to be sick." "No, you're not. You're going to go to the press room and do interviews like the boss you are." The press room was chaos. Reporter after reporter asking questions, cameras flashing, microphones thrust in her face. Simone answered everything as honestly as she could, talking about her diagnosis, her treatment, her recovery. She talked about Derek too when they asked. "My ex-husband served me with divorce papers the day after my diagnosis," she said calmly. "He had been having an affair and wanted to move on with his life. It was devastating at the time. Now I see it as a blessing. He removed himself from my life, and I was free to become the person I was meant to be." "Do you have any message for him?" one reporter asked. Simone smiled. "Thank you. Thank you for showing me who you really were before I wasted any more of my life on you." The clip went viral within hours. By evening it was everywhere. News sites, social media, television. Simone's face was on every screen, her story told and retold. The woman who was supposed to die, who instead built an empire. Derek called that night. Simone didn't answer, but he left a voicemail that Nicole insisted they listen to on speakerphone. "Simone, please, you're being unreasonable." Derek's voice came through, whiny and desperate. "That money was earned during our marriage. I helped you. I supported you while you worked on that software. I deserve something." Nicole snorted. "Supported you?" "He complained constantly about the time you spent in the garage." "You need to stop calling," Simone said, even though Derek couldn't hear her. "Patterson told you the settlement is final." Derek's voicemail continued. "My lawyer says we can reopen the case. We can prove you were deceptive when you signed the divorce papers." "We can?" Simone deleted the message. "He's not going to give up," Nicole warned. "Let him try." Patterson made sure those papers were airtight. Derek signed away his rights. That's his problem, not mine. But Derek didn't just try. He hired a new lawyer and filed a motion to reopen the divorce settlement, claiming fraud and deception. The case made headlines. Bitter ex sues cancer survivor for millions. Simone sat in Patterson's office, reading through the legal filing. Derek's lawyer argued that she had deliberately hidden the contract from him during their divorce negotiations, that she had been deceptive about her financial situation, and that the settlement should be voided. "Can he win?" Simone asked. "No. Absolutely not." Patterson was confident. "First, you were under no legal obligation to disclose the contract. It hadn't been finalized yet, the money hadn't transferred, and you were separated. Second, Derek's own lawyer drafted the settlement terms. They included the clause waiving claims to future earnings. Third, and most importantly, Derek abandoned you when you were terminally ill. No judge is going to look favorably on him trying to profit from your success now. But we have to go through a trial? Unless Derek drops it. But knowing him, he won't. He'll drag this out until he runs out of money for lawyers, which given his current financial state, shouldn't be too long." The trial date was set for 6 months away. In the meantime, Simone threw herself into her work. TechVision Solutions officially launched and the response was overwhelming. Hospitals wanted her software. Tech companies wanted to partner with her. She was offered speaking engagements, board positions, and investment opportunities faster than she could evaluate them. She hired Nicole as her chief operating officer. "I need someone I can trust," Simone explained. "Someone who was there when I had nothing. Someone who knows what this company is really about." Nicole accepted with tears in her eyes. "I won't let you down. I know you won't." The Hope Rising Foundation opened its doors 3 months after Simone's announcement. They received over 5,000 applications in the first week from cancer patients desperate for help. Simone read every single application, her heart breaking at each story of people fighting for their lives without resources. "We need to expand," she told Dr. Chin, who had agreed to serve on the foundation's medical board. 5,000 people. "We can't help them all, but we have to help as many as we can." "We'll start with 100, Dr. Chin said. "We'll select the patients who have the best chance of benefiting from experimental treatments. And Simone will grow from there. This is just the beginning." They chose their first recipients carefully. A single mother of 3 with breast cancer, a teenage boy with leukemia, a veteran with lung cancer, a teacher with pancreatic cancer. Each one had been turned away from clinical trials because they couldn't afford the associated costs. Each one was given a second chance through Hope Rising. Simone met them all personally, shaking hands and promising to do everything she could to help. She saw herself in their faces, the fear and the hope tangled together. She remembered what it felt like to think you were going to die, to feel abandoned by the world. "You're not alone," she told them. "We're going to fight this together." The day before the trial, Derek tried one last time to reach her. He showed up at TechVision's offices demanding to see her. Security called Simone, and she watched on the lobby camera as Derek argued with the guards. He looked worse than the last time she'd seen him. His suit was cheap and ill-fitting. His hair was thinning. He had gained weight and lost whatever charm he once had. He looked like a man who had made terrible choices and was drowning in the consequences. "Should we call the police?" the security guard asked. "No. Tell him I'll meet him in the lobby. But record everything." Simone took the elevator down, her heart pounding. She hadn't been this close to Derek in over a year, hadn't spoken to him since that day outside her apartment. She wasn't sure how she would feel seeing him face to face. The answer, when she stepped into the lobby, was nothing. She felt absolutely nothing. "Derek," she said calmly. "Simone, thank God. Please, we need to talk before tomorrow. We can settle this without going to court. I'll drop the lawsuit if you just give me something. $1 million. That's nothing to you now. Please." "No. Simone, I'm begging you. I'm about to lose the house. I have debt collectors calling me every day. I can't." "Stop," Simone interrupted. "Stop acting like your problems are my responsibility. You made your choices. You chose to cheat on me. You chose to divorce me when I was dying. You chose to sign papers waiving your rights to my earnings. Those were your choices, Derek. Not mine. But I didn't know. You should have told me about the contract." "What? Would you have stayed? Would you have suddenly loved me again if you knew I was about to be rich?" Simone stepped closer to him. "Or would you have stayed just for the money, making me miserable while you continued your affair?" Derek had no answer to that. "Go home, Derek. Drop the lawsuit. Move on with your life. Because I promise you, tomorrow in court you're going to lose. And it's going to be public and humiliating. Is that really what you want?" "I want what's fair." "Fair?" Simone laughed. "You want to talk about fair? It wasn't fair when you cheated on me. It wasn't fair when you abandoned me in the hospital. It wasn't fair when you tried to take everything we built together. But I survived anyway. I built something amazing anyway. That's not your victory to claim." She turned to walk away, but Derek grabbed her arm. Security immediately moved forward, but Simone held up her hand to stop them. "Let go of me," she said quietly. "Simone, please. I made a mistake. I was scared. I didn't know how to handle your diagnosis. But I never stopped loving you." "Yes, you did. You stopped loving me long before my diagnosis. Maybe you never really loved me at all." Simone pulled her arm free. "Goodbye, Derek. I'll see you in court." She walked to the elevator without looking back. Behind her, she heard Derek calling her name, heard the security guards escorting him out. She didn't care. Tomorrow, a judge would make it official. Derek had no claim to her life, her money, or her future. Tonight, she had a company to run and a foundation to build. She had cancer survivors counting on her and a world that needed changing. Derek was the past. And Simone was done living there. The courtroom was smaller than Simone expected. She had imagined something grand and intimidating, but it was just a plain room with wooden benches and fluorescent lights. She sat beside Patterson at the plaintiff's table, watching as people filed in. Reporters filled the back rows, their cameras and notebooks ready. Derek sat across from her with his new lawyer, a young man who looked fresh out of law school. Derek wouldn't look at her. He kept his eyes fixed on the table, his jaw clenched tight. He was wearing the same cheap suit from yesterday. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked at the assembled crowd and frowned. "This case has generated quite a bit of public interest," she said dryly. "But I want to make something clear. This is a court of law, not a media circus. We're here to determine whether Mr. Derek Johnson has grounds to reopen the divorce settlement with Mrs. Simone Washington. Nothing more, nothing less. Let's begin." Derek's lawyer stood first. His name was Timothy Brooks and he was nervous. Simone could see his hands shaking as he held his notes. "Your Honor, my client was deceived during divorce proceedings. Mrs. Washington deliberately concealed a $700 million contract from him during settlement negotiations. Had he known about this contract, the terms would have been substantially different. The contract was signed 3 days before Mrs. Washington's cancer diagnosis," Patterson interjected. "But the money didn't transfer until after the separation date. Mr. Johnson signed papers explicitly waiving any claims to her future earnings. It was earned during the marriage, Brooks argued. The work was done during the marriage. The contract was signed during the marriage. Therefore, it should be considered marital property. Judge Morrison looked at the documents in front of her. Mr. Brooks, your client's own lawyer drafted the settlement agreement. Let me read the relevant section. She picked up a paper and read aloud. Both parties agree to separate with their individual assets and waive any claims to income, earnings, or assets acquired by the other party after the date of separation, regardless of when contracts were signed or agreements were made. That language is highly unusual, Brooks said. My client didn't understand what he was signing. Your client had a lawyer present, the judge pointed out. Are you suggesting his lawyer was incompetent? Brooks faltered. No, Your Honor, but... Because if you're arguing that your client's previous lawyer was incompetent, that's a different case entirely. One you should take up with that lawyer, not with Mrs. Washington. Simone watched Derek shift in his seat. He whispered something to Brooks, who nodded and stood straighter. Your Honor, my client is requesting that the settlement be voided on the grounds of fraud. Mrs. Washington knew about the contract and deliberately hid it from him. Was Mrs. Washington legally required to disclose this contract? Judge Morrison asked. The contract was signed during the marriage, Brooks repeated. It's marital property. That's not what I asked. Was she legally required to disclose it during divorce proceedings? Brooks hesitated. Given the circumstances. Yes or no, counselor? No, Your Honor. Not technically. But. Then there's no fraud. Judge Morrison turned to Patterson. Mr. Patterson, does your client wish to respond? Patterson stood smoothly. He had been doing this for 30 years and it showed. Your Honor, my client wishes the court to understand the full circumstances surrounding this divorce. Mr. Johnson didn't just leave Mrs. Washington. He abandoned her after a terminal cancer diagnosis. He served her with divorce papers while she was in the hospital, told her he wanted to move on with his life, and immediately moved his girlfriend into their marital home. Objection. Brooks jumped up. That's not relevant to the financial settlement. It's absolutely relevant, Patterson said calmly. My client was dying. She was given 6 months to live. Mr. Johnson made a calculated decision to divorce her quickly, assuming she would be dead within months and he would be free and clear. He demanded she waive all claims to his future earnings because he didn't want to be responsible for her medical debts. He never imagined she would survive, let alone thrive. The courtroom murmured. Reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks. Furthermore, Patterson continued, Mr. Johnson's own settlement terms protected him from exactly what he's now accusing my client of doing. He wanted ironclad protection from any claim she might make. His lawyer ensured that protection went both ways. Mr. Johnson cannot now claim he was deceived when he got exactly what he asked for. A clean break with no financial entanglements. Judge Morrison looked at Derek. Mr. Johnson, did you or did you not have a lawyer present when you signed the divorce settlement? Derek stood awkwardly. I did, Your Honor. And did that lawyer advise you on the terms? Yes, but I didn't understand. Did you read the settlement before signing? Derek's face reddened. I skimmed it. I trusted my lawyer too. So you signed a legal document without reading it carefully? I was trying to move forward with my life, Derek said defensively. My lawyer assured me everything was fine. Your lawyer drafted terms that protected you from any claims your dying wife might make, the judge said sharply. Those same terms protected her from any claims you might make. That's called an equitable agreement, Mr. Johnson. But she tricked me. How did she trick you? By surviving? Judge Morrison's voice was cold. By not dying on your timeline? By building a successful business while battling cancer. She should have told me about the contract. Why? So you could stay married to her for the money? So you could continue your affair while profiting from her work? The judge shook her head. Mr. Johnson, I've seen many cases in my career, but this is one of the most egregious attempts at opportunism I've witnessed. You abandoned your wife when she needed you most, divorced her as quickly as possible, and now that she's successful, you want a piece of her success. The answer is no. Your Honor, please, Brooks tried to interject. I'm not finished, counselor. Mr. Brooks, I suggest you advise your client to drop this lawsuit immediately. Because if we go forward with a full trial, I will allow Mrs. Washington's team to present evidence of Mr. Johnson's behavior during their marriage. And I assure you that evidence will be damaging. Patterson smiled slightly. Your Honor, we have extensive documentation. Text messages, emails, financial records showing Mr. Johnson moved money to hidden accounts before serving divorce papers. Hotel receipts proving his affair began months before Mrs. Washington's diagnosis. Testimony from friends and family about his treatment of my client during her illness. Derek's face went pale. He grabbed Brooks's arm and whispered urgently. Brooks looked uncomfortable but stood to address the court. Your Honor, my client would like a recess to consider his options. Denied. We're here now. Let's finish this. Judge Morrison looked at Derek again. Mr. Johnson, your wife signed a contract for work she did independently. She developed software in your garage while you, by multiple accounts, complained about the time she spent on it. She built something valuable through her own effort and talent. The fact that you happened to be married to her at the time doesn't entitle you to her success. I supported her. Derek burst out. I paid the mortgage while she worked on that software. And you received the house in the divorce settlement, Patterson noted. You got what you paid for, Mr. Johnson. I'm about to lose that house because I can't afford it anymore. Again, not Mrs. Washington's problem, the judge said. You made a series of poor decisions. You chose to have an affair. You chose to divorce a dying woman. You chose to sign settlement papers without reading them carefully. Those are your consequences to face. This isn't fair. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Johnson, let me be very clear. Mrs. Washington owed you nothing. Not information about her contract, not access to her money, not a second chance. You threw away your marriage for an affair. You showed no compassion when your wife was facing death. And now you have the audacity to come into my courtroom and demand she give you money? No, sir. That's not how this works. So that's it. Derek's voice rose. She gets to keep everything and I get nothing? You got exactly what you asked for in the divorce. A clean break. No financial ties. Your freedom to move forward with your life. Judge Morrison picked up her gavel. I'm denying your motion to reopen the settlement. The original divorce agreement stands as written. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to pay Mrs. Washington's legal fees for this frivolous lawsuit. How much? Derek asked weakly. Patterson stood. Our fees for defending this case amount to approximately $2 million, Your Honor. Derek looked like he might faint. $2 million? I don't have $2 million. You should have thought of that before filing a baseless lawsuit, the judge said without sympathy. Perhaps you can work out a payment plan with Mrs. Washington's attorney. This case is dismissed. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. The courtroom erupted in noise. Reporters rushed for the exits to file their stories. Derek sat frozen in his chair, staring at nothing. Simone stood and turned to leave. She felt lighter than she had in months, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Derek had no claim to her money, her success, or her future. It was finally officially over. Mrs. Washington, a reporter called out as she exited the courtroom. How do you feel about the verdict? Vindicated, Simone said simply. Justice was served. Do you have any message for your ex-husband? Simone paused and looked back at the courtroom. Through the windows she could see Derek still sitting at the table, his head in his hands. For a moment she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I hope he learns from this, she said. I hope he learns that actions have consequences. That you can't treat people like they're disposable and expect no repercussions. And I hope he finds a way to rebuild his life with integrity this time. It was more kindness than Derek deserved and Simone knew it. But she was tired of anger. Tired of revenge. She had better things to do with her energy. Patterson walked beside her as they left the courthouse, photographers snapping pictures of them on the steps. That went even better than expected, Patterson said. Judge Morrison doesn't usually show that much emotion in court. She was angry. She was disgusted. And rightfully so. Patterson checked his phone. Derek's lawyer just sent a message. They want to negotiate a payment plan for the legal fees. Tell them I'll accept $50,000 a year for 40 years. Patterson raised an eyebrow. That's generous. I don't need his money. I just need him to remember, every single month when he makes that payment, what his choices cost him. Brutal. I love it. Simone smiled. I learned from the best. That evening, Nicole came over to Simone's apartment with champagne and Thai food. They celebrated on the floor of Simone's living room, music playing from her phone. You won, Nicole said, raising her glass. You beat cancer, you beat Derek, and you built an empire. You're officially a legend. I'm officially exhausted, Simone admitted. But happy. For the first time in 2 years, I'm actually happy. What's next? Besides changing the world with your company and foundation, Simone thought about it. I think I need to move. This apartment served its purpose, but it's time for something better. Finally. I've been saying that for months. And I think I need to start actually living. I spent 2 years just surviving. I want to enjoy my life. Does that include dating? Nicole asked carefully. Simone laughed. Maybe eventually. But right now I'm focused on me. On building the life I want, not the life I thought I was supposed to have. They ate and drank and talked late into the night. When Nicole finally left, Simone stood at her window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably drinking too, drowning his sorrows and cursing her name. But that wasn't her concern anymore. She had won. Not because she had money or success, but because she had survived everything designed to break her. And she had come out stronger. Tomorrow she would start looking for a new place to live. Next week, she would attend the foundation's first fundraising gala. Next month, she would give a keynote speech at a medical conference. But tonight, she was just going to appreciate being alive. Being free. Being happy. It was enough. The trial had been scheduled for 6 months away, but Derek's lawyers filed motion after motion, each one more desperate than the last. They claimed new evidence, technicalities, procedural errors. Anything to keep the case alive. But Patterson had been right. Derek was running out of money. His third lawyer dropped him after 2 months of unpaid bills. Simone watched it all from a distance, focused on her growing company. TechVision Solutions had expanded to 3 cities, with plans for international offices by the end of the year. The Hope Rising Foundation had helped over 200 cancer patients access treatment. Her days were full of meetings, speeches, and building something that mattered. But the legal battle continued dragging on, and eventually Judge Morrison had enough. We're moving forward with a full trial, she announced during a preliminary hearing. Mr. Johnson seems determined to present his case. Fine. Let's hear all the evidence. Both sides. Derek's fourth lawyer, a desperate-looking man named Harold Green who worked from a strip mall office, looked relieved. Derek himself looked nervous. Your Honor, we're prepared to present evidence that Mrs. Washington deliberately concealed assets and deceived my client, Green said. And we're prepared to present evidence of Mr. Johnson's behavior during the marriage, Patterson responded smoothly. In fact, we welcome the opportunity. The trial date was set for 3 months away. Simone spent those months preparing, going through old emails and text messages, gathering documentation of everything Derek had done. Patterson hired investigators who uncovered even more than Simone had known. He opened a credit card in your name, Patterson told her during a prep session. 2 months before he served you with divorce papers. Ran up $20,000 in debt. He what? It gets worse. He transferred money from your joint savings account to a separate account he opened with Brittany. Over $50,000 total. He was systematically stealing from you while planning his exit. Simone felt sick. I had no idea. I trusted him with our finances. That's what he counted on. He thought you'd be dead before anyone discovered it. Patterson looked angry. Simone, when we present this in court, it's going to destroy him. Are you sure you want to go through with this? We could still settle. No settlement. I want everything on the record. I want people to know exactly who he is. The trial began on a cold morning in November. The courtroom was packed with reporters and spectators. Simone wore a navy suit, her hair styled professionally, her makeup subtle. She looked healthy and successful and nothing like the dying woman Derek had divorced. Derek, on the other hand, looked terrible. He had lost more weight, his suit hung loose on his frame, and he had the hunted look of a man who knew he was cornered. Green called Derek to the stand first. Under questioning, Derek told his version of events. That he had loved Simone, that her diagnosis had devastated him, that he had divorced her because watching her die was too painful. He claimed he never knew about the contract, that Simone had hidden it from him deliberately to cheat him out of his rightful share. I supported her for years while she worked on that software, Derek said, his voice practiced and sincere. I paid the bills, I gave her time and space to pursue her dream. When she finally sold it, I deserved to benefit from that sacrifice. Sacrifice. Patterson said when it was his turn to cross-examine. Mr. Johnson, did you or did you not complain constantly about the time Mrs. Washington spent developing her software? Derek shifted in his seat. I may have expressed frustration occasionally, but I have text messages. Patterson pulled up exhibits on the screen. Messages from Derek to Simone. This is ridiculous. You're wasting time on something that will never make money. Can you stop playing on your computer and actually spend time with your husband? I'm tired of living with someone who cares more about code than about me. The courtroom was silent. Derek's face flushed red. Does that sound like support to you, Mr. Johnson? I was just frustrated sometimes. That doesn't mean I didn't believe in her. Let's talk about the affair, Patterson said. When did your relationship with Brittany Harper begin? 8 months before the divorce. 8 months before you served your wife with divorce papers. But how long before her diagnosis? Derek hesitated. I'm not sure exactly. Let me help you. Patterson displayed more exhibits. Hotel receipts, text messages, photos. This is from 14 months before the divorce. A hotel room booked in your name and Ms. Harper's. This is from 16 months before. This is from 18 months before. Objection. Green stood. This is harassment. This is evidence, Judge Morrison said. Overruled. Continue, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Johnson, your affair began at least 18 months before your wife's diagnosis. You were planning to leave her long before she got sick, weren't you? No. I loved her. You just what? Loved someone else more? Patterson's voice was sharp. You moved money from joint accounts to a separate account with Ms. Harper's name on it. You opened a credit card in your wife's name without her knowledge. You were preparing your exit while your wife had no idea. Derek had no answer. And then your wife got cancer, Patterson continued. A terminal diagnosis. 6 months to live. And you saw an opportunity, didn't you? You could divorce her quickly, take what you wanted, and she'd be dead before anyone questioned it. That's not true. Really? Because the timeline is very clear. Mrs. Washington received her diagnosis on January 15th. You served her with divorce papers on January 16th. Less than 24 hours later. You didn't even wait a full day before you abandoned your dying wife. The courtroom murmured. Even the reporters looked shocked. I couldn't handle watching her die, Derek said weakly. But you could handle watching her struggle through chemotherapy alone? You could handle moving your girlfriend into your marital home while your wife lived in a cheap apartment? You could handle posting happy photos on social media while your wife fought for her life. Patterson displayed Derek's social media posts from during Simone's treatment. Pictures of him and Brittany at restaurants, at the beach, at parties. Captions about new beginnings, and finally happy, and living my best life. This was posted the day your wife started chemotherapy, Patterson said, pointing to a photo of Derek and Brittany toasting champagne. Does this look like a man devastated by his wife's diagnosis? Derek said nothing. Patterson called witness after witness. Nicole testified about Derek's behavior during the marriage and after. She described his complaints about Simone's work, his controlling behavior with money, his refusal to visit Simone during treatment. He blocked her from family events, Nicole said, her voice shaking with anger. His family had a reunion 4 months into her treatment. Simone wanted to go to see everyone one last time. Derek told his family that she was too sick to attend. But really he just didn't want them to see her. He didn't want them to know he had abandoned her. Dr. Chin testified about Simone's treatment and how rare it was for patients to survive such an aggressive cancer. Mrs. Washington is a medical miracle, he said. But she's also a fighter. She never gave up even when every statistic said she should. And she did it alone, without the support of her husband. Patterson presented financial records showing Derek's theft. The credit card opened in Simone's name, maxed out and never paid. The transfers from joint accounts to the account with Brittany. Even the mortgage payments that Derek had supposedly been making on his own but were actually coming from joint funds until the divorce was final. Mr. Johnson claims he sacrificed to support his wife, Patterson said. But the evidence shows he was stealing from her while she was dying. On the third day of trial, Patterson called Brittany Harper to the stand. She had been served with a subpoena and clearly didn't want to be there. She wore too much makeup and a defiant expression. Ms. Harper, when did your relationship with Mr. Johnson begin? About 2 years ago, Brittany admitted. And you knew he was married? Yes, but he said the marriage was over. He said they were basically roommates. Did he mention that his wife was dying? Brittany's expression wavered. He told me she was sick. He said it was better to end things before she suffered more. And you believed him? I don't know what you want me to say. He told me he loved me. He said we were going to have a future together. Did you know about Mrs. Washington's contract? The $700 million? No. I found out when everyone else did. If I had known, Brittany stopped. If you had known what? You would have stayed. Patterson asked pointedly. I just mean, it's a lot of money. He should have told me. You left Mr. Johnson immediately after learning Mrs. Washington was wealthy, didn't you? That's not, we had other problems. Problems like him having no money and you realizing you weren't going to be a millionaire's wife? Objection. Green stood. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Patterson, move on. But the damage was done. The jury had seen Brittany's true character, just as they had seen Derek's. On the final day of trial, Patterson called Simone to the stand. She walked up calmly, placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. She looked directly at Derek as she did it. Patterson's questions were straightforward. Simone described her work developing the software, the years she spent in their garage coding and testing and refining. She described Derek's complaints and his lack of support. He said I was wasting time, Simone testified. He said I should get a real job. He called my work a hobby. She described receiving her diagnosis and Derek's immediate response. He walked in with the divorce papers instead of flowers. He told me he couldn't watch me die. He said he needed to move on with his life. Simone's voice was steady but her eyes were wet. I was lying in a hospital bed, tubes in my arms, being told I had 6 months to live. And my husband was serving me with divorce papers. Did you tell him about the TechCorp contract? Patterson asked. No. Why not? Because 3 days before my diagnosis, I had been planning to surprise him with the news. I had imagined his joy, his excitement. Then he showed me who he really was. He showed me that when things got hard he ran. He showed me that his love had conditions. Simone looked at Derek. I stayed silent because I didn't owe him anything anymore. He wanted out of our marriage. I gave him what he wanted. Did you intend to deceive him? No. I simply didn't share information with a man who had already betrayed me. He signed papers waiving claims to my future earnings because he was protecting himself from my medical debts. Those papers protected me too. That's not deception. That's consequences. Green tried to shake her testimony during cross-examination, but Simone was unflappable. She answered every question calmly and honestly. When Green suggested she had tricked Derek, she simply said, I gave him exactly what he asked for. A divorce. Freedom. No financial ties. He just didn't expect me to survive long enough to benefit from it. Closing arguments took another day. Green painted Simone as a cold, calculating woman who had stolen Derek's rightful share. Patterson painted Derek as an opportunistic man who abandoned his dying wife and was now trying to profit from her success. This case is simple, Patterson told the jury. Mr. Johnson made choices. He chose to have an affair. He chose to steal money from joint accounts. He chose to divorce his wife hours after her terminal diagnosis. He chose to sign settlement papers protecting himself from her debts. Those choices have consequences. He cannot now claim he deserves access to her success. He walked away from Simone Washington when she needed him most. He doesn't get to walk back into her life now that she's successful. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous. Derek had no claim to Simone's contract money. The settlement stood as written. Furthermore, Derek was ordered to return the money he had stolen from joint accounts, pay Simone's legal fees, and repay the credit card debt he had fraudulently opened in her name. The total amount, $2.3 million. Derek collapsed in his chair. His lawyer tried to speak, but Judge Morrison silenced him with a look. Mr. Johnson, I hope you've learned something from this experience, the judge said. You cannot treat people as disposable and expect no consequences. You cannot abandon someone in their darkest hour and then expect to benefit from their success. The law and this court will not allow it. Derek was led from the courtroom by his lawyer, his face pale and his shoulders slumped. Simone watched him go and felt only relief. It was finally over. Derek had no claim to her life, her money, or her future. The law had confirmed what she already knew. She owed him nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed her with questions. Simone made a brief statement. Today justice was served. My ex-husband tried to profit from my success after abandoning me when I needed him most. The court confirmed that his choices have consequences. I hope this case sends a message to anyone facing similar circumstances. You are not obligated to maintain ties with people who treated you poorly just because they regret their choices now. That evening, she and Nicole celebrated quietly in Simone's apartment. They didn't toast or cheer. They simply sat together, grateful that the ordeal was finally over. How do you feel? Nicole asked. Free, Simone said. Finally, completely free. The media coverage after the trial was overwhelming. Simone's face was everywhere. magazines, news websites, television programs. Everyone wanted to interview the woman who had survived cancer, built a fortune, and beat her ex-husband in court. She declined most requests, choosing instead to focus on her work. But the story took on a life of its own. Social media exploded with support for Simone and contempt for Derek. He became a cautionary tale, a meme, a symbol of everything wrong with opportunistic people. His photo circulated with captions like, "Worst ex ever," and "This is what karma looks like." Derek tried to fight back. He gave an interview to a tabloid website where he claimed Simone had portrayed him unfairly, that there were two sides to every story, that he was the real victim. The interview backfired spectacularly. He's claiming he's the victim? Nicole showed Simone the article, her voice incredulous. He divorced his dying wife and stole money from her, and he thinks he's the victim? Let him think whatever he wants, Simone said. It doesn't matter anymore. But it did matter to the internet. Derek's employer, the car dealership where he worked as a sales associate, fired him after the article went viral. They released a statement saying his values didn't align with their company culture. Other employers rejected his applications when they recognized his name. Simone heard through mutual acquaintances that Derek had moved into a small studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. He was working part-time jobs, trying to make enough to cover his bills and the payment plan Patterson had arranged for his debt to Simone. The house had been foreclosed on months ago. She tried to feel vindicated. Instead, she felt empty. Derek had destroyed his own life through his choices, but watching it happen gave her no pleasure. She had expected revenge to feel sweeter. "You're too good a person to enjoy someone else's suffering," Nicole said when Simone admitted this. "Even when they deserve it. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of thinking about him." Patterson called a few weeks after the trial with news. "Derek's lawyer contacted me. He wants to negotiate a reduction in the payment plan. Claims he can't afford the monthly amount." "What does he want to pay?" $200 a month. At that rate, he'll be paying for 96 years. Simone did the math in her head. He's 40 years old. He'd be paying until he's 136. Essentially, yes. "What do you want to do?" Simone thought about it. She thought about the girl she had been when she married Derek, full of hope and love and trust. She thought about the woman she had become, forged through betrayal and illness and survival. That woman didn't need Derek's money. She didn't need him to suffer. She just needed him gone from her life. "Tell him I'll accept $1 a month for the rest of his life," Simone said. Patterson was silent for a moment. $1 a month? That's essentially forgiving the debt. "No, it's not. It's making sure he remembers every single month what he lost. $1 isn't a burden. But writing that check every month, knowing what I built while he fell apart, that's the real payment." "That's actually brilliant. And cruel. I'll inform his lawyer." Derek accepted the arrangement. Simone received her first $1 check in the mail a month later, with a memo line that read simply, "Payment." She taped it to her refrigerator as a reminder. Not of Derek, but of her own strength. Meanwhile, TechVision Solutions continued to grow. Simone hired a team of brilliant engineers and developers, people who shared her vision of using technology to improve healthcare. They developed new software that could predict patient outcomes, identify drug interactions, and personalize treatment plans. Hospitals across the country implemented their systems. The Hope Rising Foundation expanded too. They opened an office in Chicago, then Los Angeles, then Houston. Dr. Chin helped them establish partnerships with research hospitals, ensuring they could place patients in the most promising clinical trials. They started offering not just financial assistance, but also transportation, housing, and emotional support for families. Simone visited the foundation's patients whenever she could, meeting people who reminded her of herself 2 years ago, scared, sick, desperate for hope. She sat with them in hospitals, held their hands, and promised them they weren't alone. "You survived," a woman named Patricia said during one visit. She was a 52-year-old teacher with ovarian cancer, similar to what Simone had fought. "That gives me hope." "Hope is powerful," Simone agreed. "But so are you. Don't forget that. The cancer doesn't define you. Your fight defines you." It was during one of these hospital visits that Simone met Jonathan Hayes. He was a doctor specializing in oncology, someone who had worked with Dr. Chen's team during Simone's treatment. She recognized him vaguely but couldn't place from where. "You probably don't remember me," Jonathan said when she looked confused. "I was one of the residents who checked on you during your chemo sessions. You were usually pretty out of it." "I don't remember much from that time," Simone admitted. "Everything was a blur." You were a fighter though. Even when you were barely conscious, you never gave up. It was inspiring to watch. They talked for a while about the foundation's work, about the patients they were helping, about the future of cancer treatment. Jonathan was passionate about his work, speaking about his patients with genuine care and compassion. Simone found herself enjoying the conversation more than she had expected. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Jonathan asked as she was leaving. I'd love to hear more about your AI software and how we might integrate it into our treatment protocols. That sounds professional and appropriate, Simone said with a small smile. It is. Completely professional. Jonathan smiled back. Unless you wanted it to be something else. In which case, I should mention that I think you're remarkable, and I'd love to take you to dinner instead. Simone was surprised by how much she wanted to say yes. But she hesitated. I'm just getting my life back together. The trial just ended, my ex-husband. I know. I read about it. Everyone did. And I completely understand if you're not ready. Jonathan pulled out a business card. But if you change your mind, or if you just want to talk about AI integration in healthcare, here's my number. Simone took the card. I'll think about it. She did think about it. For weeks, she carried that card in her wallet, pulling it out occasionally and wondering if she was ready to trust someone again. Nicole encouraged her relentlessly. He's a doctor, he's hot, and he clearly respects you, Nicole said. What more do you want? I want to be sure, Simone replied. I want to know that I'm moving forward for the right reasons, not just because I'm lonely or trying to prove something to Derek. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. But Simone, you deserve happiness. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. Eventually, Simone called Jonathan. They met for coffee at a small cafe near the hospital. The conversation flowed easily, moving from work to personal history to hopes for the future. Jonathan was divorced too, had been for 3 years. She wanted kids and I wasn't ready, he explained. By the time I was ready, she had moved on. It was amicable though. We still talk sometimes. That's mature, Simone said. We were married for 6 years. You can't just erase someone from your life after that long. Jonathan paused. I read about your divorce. What happened to you was awful. It was. But it also freed me to become who I was meant to be. Simone stirred her coffee. I don't know if I would have built any of this if Derek had stayed. I might have kept playing small, keeping him comfortable, never reaching my full potential. That's a generous way to look at it. I'm not being generous. I'm being honest. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best outcomes. I wouldn't wish cancer on anyone, and I wouldn't wish Derek's betrayal on anyone. But I survived both and I'm stronger for it. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk through the city. Jonathan was easy to talk to, genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. He didn't try to fix her or save her or take credit for her success. He simply saw her as a whole person with a complicated past and an exciting future. Can I see you again? He asked at the end of the night. Yes, Simone said. I'd like that. They started dating slowly, carefully. Jonathan understood that Simone needed time and space. He never pushed, never demanded, never tried to rush her into anything. They went to museums and restaurants, took walks on the beach, spent quiet evenings cooking dinner together. Nicole approved immediately. He looks at you like you hung the moon. And more importantly, he treats you like an equal, not a trophy. It's different than with Derek, Simone admitted. Easier. More natural. That's because Jonathan actually likes who you are. Derek wanted you to be what he needed. 6 months into dating, Jonathan invited Simone to meet his parents. It felt like a big step, a sign that this relationship was becoming serious. Simone was nervous. What if they don't like me? She asked Nicole while getting ready. Impossible. You're a successful businesswoman who survived cancer and started a foundation that saves lives. You're basically a superhero. Jonathan's parents were warm and welcoming, treating Simone like family from the moment she walked through the door. His mother hugged her tightly and whispered, "My son talks about you constantly. Thank you for making him so happy." It was during dessert that Jonathan's father asked about her past. Jonathan mentioned you were previously married? I was. It didn't work out. Simone kept her answer brief. That's putting it mildly, Jonathan said. Dad, you've probably seen the news stories. Simone's ex-husband is somewhat infamous. Recognition dawned on his father's face. Oh, you're that Simone Washington. The one with the contract and the, oh my goodness. That's me, Simone said with a slight smile. I'm so sorry for what you went through, Jonathan's mother said. What a terrible man. He was. But it led me here to this moment and I'm grateful for that. They spent the rest of the evening talking about happier things. Simone felt welcomed and accepted in a way she never had with Derek's family, who had always treated her like she wasn't quite good enough. When Jonathan drove her home that night, he took her hand. "Thank you for meeting them. They loved you. I love them too. They're wonderful. They're nosy and overwhelming and they definitely went home to Google everything about you." Simone laughed. "Let them Google. My life is an open book now. Everyone knows my story. Does that bother you?" "Sometimes. But mostly I'm proud of it. I survived. I built something meaningful. That's nothing to hide." Jonathan walked her to her door. "I'm proud of you too. For everything you've overcome. For who you are." "Who I am is someone who's ready to stop living in the past," Simone said. "Ready to build a future with someone who actually deserves to be in it." "Is that someone me?" "Yes. If you want it to be." "I do," Jonathan said. "Very much." They kissed on her doorstep, gentle and promising. Simone felt something shift inside her, the last piece of armor she'd been carrying around finally falling away. She was ready. Ready to trust again, to love again, to be happy again. Derek had taken so much from her. Time, trust, the naive belief in forever. But he hadn't taken everything. He hadn't taken her strength, her intelligence, her capacity to love. And he certainly hadn't taken her future. That belonged to Simone alone. And she was going to make it extraordinary. 2 years after her diagnosis, Simone stood in front of a room full of donors and supporters at Hope Rising Foundation's annual gala. She wore a deep blue gown, her hair styled in natural curls that framed her face. She looked healthy, confident, and nothing like the dying woman Derek had left behind. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying through the ballroom. 2 years ago, I was lying in a hospital bed being told I had 6 months to live. I had stage 4 cancer, no hope, and a husband who decided that my diagnosis was his cue to leave. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. I'm standing here tonight because I got lucky. I had access to experimental treatments that most people can't afford. I had resources and support and a best friend who refused to let me give up. Simone looked at Nicole, who was sitting at the front table wiping tears from her eyes. But luck shouldn't determine who survives cancer. Money shouldn't determine who gets a chance to live. She clicked to a slide showing photos of patients Hope Rising had helped. "These are some of the people we've served over the past year. Patricia, a teacher from Denver who's now in remission from ovarian cancer. Marcus, a 15-year-old from Atlanta who just finished his last round of treatment for leukemia. Angela, a veteran from Phoenix who's fighting breast cancer with a new immunotherapy trial we helped her access." More slides showed families reunited, patients celebrating clear scans, people getting second chances. This year, Hope Rising Foundation helped 5,000 cancer patients access treatment they couldn't otherwise afford. We paid for clinical trial participation, transportation, lodging, and support services. We partnered with research hospitals to expand trial capacity. We changed 5,000 lives. The room erupted in applause. "But we're just getting started," Simone continued. "With your support tonight, we're launching an expansion that will double our reach. We're opening offices in 10 new cities. We're establishing partnerships with international research centers. We're creating a network of care that will help 10,000 patients next year, and more every year after that." She spoke for another 20 minutes, sharing stories and outlining plans. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted several minutes. Donors lined up to write checks and make pledges. By the end of the night, they had raised $15 million. Jonathan found her after the event, as she was catching her breath in a quiet corner. "You were amazing up there." "I was terrified," Simone admitted. "It didn't show. You're a natural." He handed her a glass of champagne. "To changing the world. To saving lives," Simone corrected, touching her glass to his. They had been dating for 8 months now, and it felt right in a way her marriage to Derek never had. Jonathan was supportive without being controlling, interested without being possessive. He celebrated her success and supported her through difficult days. When she worked late, he brought her dinner. When she doubted herself, he reminded her of everything she had already achieved. "Move in with me," Simone said suddenly. Jonathan looked surprised. "Really? Really? I bought a penthouse 6 months ago. It has plenty of space, a view of the city, and it's way too big for just me and my 2 rescue dogs." "You have dogs now?" "I adopted them last month. Shelter dogs that nobody wanted. They're perfect." Jonathan laughed. "Of course you did. Yes, I'll move in with you. But fair warning, I'm messy and I snore. I survived cancer and divorce. I can handle messy and snoring. The penthouse Simone had bought was nothing like the house she had shared with Derek. That had been his taste, traditional and safe. This was hers. Modern, bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows and an open floor plan. She had decorated it with art from local galleries and plants everywhere. The dogs, a German Shepherd mix named Hope and a Pit Bull mix named Rising, had the run of the place. Jonathan moved in 2 weeks later, bringing boxes of books and clothes and a collection of vintage medical equipment he collected as a hobby. "You're a nerd," Simone teased, looking at an old stethoscope. "Takes one to know one," Jonathan replied, gesturing at her wall of framed code printouts from her original software. They settled into domestic life easily. Jonathan cooked breakfast while Simone answered emails. She worked from home while he was at the hospital. They walked the dogs together in the evenings and talked about their days. It was simple and comfortable and everything Simone had never known she wanted. Nicole visited often, bringing her new girlfriend Kelly, who worked as a physical therapist. The four of them became close friends, spending weekends together hiking or trying new restaurants or just sitting around talking. "You look happy," Nicole said one evening, watching Simone and Jonathan laugh about something. "I'm happy. Genuinely, completely happy." Simone squeezed her friend's hand. "Thank you for not letting me give up. Thank you for surviving." At work, TechVision Solutions was thriving. They had offices in 12 cities now, with over 200 employees. Simone's AI software was being used in hospitals worldwide, detecting diseases earlier and more accurately than traditional methods. She had been approached about selling the company for $2 billion but turned it down. "This isn't about money anymore," she told her board of directors. "This is about impact. We're saving lives. That's not for sale." The board supported her decision. Most of them were people she had personally recruited, people who shared her values and vision. Nicole ran operations, Patterson handled legal matters, and Dr. Chen served as medical advisor. It was a team built on trust and shared purpose. Simone also expanded her philanthropy beyond Hope Rising. She established scholarships for women in STEM fields, funded research into cancer prevention, and donated to domestic violence shelters. Money flowed out of her accounts almost as fast as it came in, but she didn't care. What was the point of wealth if she couldn't use it to help others? "You're going to give away your entire fortune," Jonathan teased one evening, reviewing her latest donation receipts. "Good. I can always make more money. I can't make more time or more chances to make a difference." Derek's monthly dollar check arrived faithfully, each one a reminder of how far she had come. She stopped taping them to her refrigerator after the first year. Now she just deposited them. Automatically, barely thinking about them. Derek had become irrelevant to her life, a footnote in her past. She heard through acquaintances that he had remarried, a quick wedding to someone he had met at his new job managing a storage facility. Nicole showed her a photo from social media. Derek and a woman named Cheryl standing outside a courthouse, both looking tired and resigned rather than happy. "He's working at a storage facility now," Nicole said. "That's quite a downgrade from corporate executive." "It's honest work," Simone said neutrally. "I hope he's finally learned something." "You're too nice. He deserves to suffer more. He is suffering. He's living with the consequences of his choices every day. That's punishment enough." What Simone didn't mention was the letter Derek had sent her 3 months earlier. It had been forwarded through Patterson's office, and she had almost thrown it away without reading it. But curiosity won out. The letter was handwritten, several pages long, and surprisingly honest. Derek apologized for everything, the affair, the abandonment, the lawsuit, all of it. He took full responsibility for his choices and acknowledged the pain he had caused. "I don't expect forgiveness," he wrote. "I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I lost. Not the money but you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me and I threw you away because I was selfish and scared and stupid. I see now what you've built, how you've helped people, how you've turned your pain into purpose. You're remarkable, Simone. You always were. I was just too blind to see it." Simone had read the letter twice, then filed it away. She didn't respond. What would be the point? Derek had apologized, but apologies didn't undo the past. They didn't erase the nights she spent alone in the hospital, or the fear she felt facing death without support, or the betrayal that cut deeper than any surgery. But she didn't hate him anymore either. Hate required energy she didn't want to spend on him. Instead she felt nothing. Derek was a person who existed in the world, someone she used to know, someone who had hurt her once. That was all. "Have you thought about what you want for the future?" Jonathan asked one night as they sat on their balcony, the city lights spread out below them. What do you mean? I mean long-term. Marriage, kids, the whole thing. We've been together almost a year. I'm in love with you. I want to know what you see when you think about our future. Simone turned to look at him. He was serious, vulnerable, waiting for her answer. I see us, she said slowly. I see this penthouse full of rescue dogs and plants. I see vacations and adventures and building something together. I see supporting each other through hard days and celebrating the good ones. As for marriage, she paused. I need more time before I can think about that. Derek burned me badly. I understand. I'm not Derek though. I know. But I need to be sure. Not of you but of myself. I need to know that I'm choosing you for the right reasons. That's fair. Jonathan took her hand. I can wait. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Because I'm not done needing you yet. They sat in comfortable silence, the city humming below them. Simone thought about how far she had come in 2 years. From dying to thriving, from betrayed to loved, from victim to victor. She still had cancer checkups every 3 months. She still held her breath waiting for results, terrified that the disease would return. But each clean scan was a gift, another 3 months of life she hadn't been promised. I'm getting a humanitarian award next month, Simone said. For the foundation's work. They want me to speak at a conference in front of like 5,000 people. That's amazing. Are you nervous? Terrified. But I'll do it. If my story can inspire even one person to keep fighting, it's worth it. Your story inspires everyone who hears it, Jonathan said. You inspire me. To do what? To be better. To care more. To use whatever gifts I have to help people. He kissed her hand. You changed my life, Simone. Before I met you, I was going through the motions. Work, home, repeat. You showed me what it means to live with purpose. You were already living with purpose. You're a doctor. You save lives every day. I treated patients. You save lives. There's a difference. Simone leaned against him, feeling grateful and content and for the first time in her life, complete. Not because of Jonathan but because of everything she had built for herself. The company, the foundation, the life she had created from nothing. Derek had taken so much from her. But in doing so, he had forced her to find strength she didn't know she had. To build a life bigger and more meaningful than anything she had imagined during their marriage. She wouldn't thank him for it. But she wouldn't regret it either. The past was the past. And Simone's future was bright enough to light up the entire city below. The humanitarian award ceremony took place on a warm spring evening, exactly 2 years after Simone's last cancer scan came back clean. She stood backstage in an emerald green gown, her hair swept up in an elegant style, listening as the presenter read her introduction. Tonight, we honor a woman who turned personal tragedy into global impact. Simone Washington, founder of TechVision Solutions and Hope Rising Foundation, has revolutionized cancer diagnostics and treatment access. She's helped over 5,000 patients access life-saving care, developed AI technology now used in hospitals worldwide, and inspired millions with her story of survival and success. The applause was overwhelming as Simone walked onto the stage. She accepted the Crystal Award, a beautiful sculpture that caught the light and threw rainbows across the audience. Jonathan was in the front row, beaming with pride. Nicole sat beside him, dabbing at her eyes. Dr. Chin was there too, along with Patterson and dozens of patients whose lives had been changed by Hope Rising. Thank you, Simone said, her voice steady. This award is deeply meaningful to me, but I have to be honest. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got a second chance and decided to use it well. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. 3 years ago I was dying. I had stage 4 cancer, a husband who abandoned me and no hope for the future. I spent months convinced I wouldn't see another year. But I survived against all odds. And when I realized I was going to live, I had to ask myself, what am I going to do with this gift? Simone held up the award. This represents 5,000 people who got the same second chance I did. Patricia, who's here tonight, is now cancer-free and back to teaching 3rd grade. Marcus just graduated high school with honors. Angela ran a marathon last month. These aren't my victories. They're theirs. I just helped remove the financial barriers that were keeping them from fighting. She talked about the foundation's expansion, about new partnerships and programs. She talked about TechVision's latest developments, software that could predict cancer recurrence and personalized treatment plans. She talked about the future she was building, brick by brick, life by life. But I want to talk about something else too, Simone continued. I want to talk about betrayal and survival. Because my story isn't just about cancer. It's about being abandoned when I was most vulnerable. It's about my ex-husband divorcing me in the hospital and trying to take everything I had worked for. It's about learning that sometimes the people who hurt us the most do us the biggest favors. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. If Derek hadn't left me, I might never have found this strength. I might have kept playing small, keeping him comfortable, never reaching my full potential. His betrayal freed me to become who I was always meant to be. So to everyone out there who's been betrayed, who's been abandoned, who's been told they're not good enough, prove them wrong. Not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. Build something so meaningful that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in your story. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. People were crying, including Simone herself. She accepted hugs and congratulations, posed for photos with patients and donors, and gave interviews until her voice was hoarse. Jonathan drove her home afterward, both of them exhausted but happy. "You were perfect up there," he said. "I was terrified. It didn't show." He pulled into their building's parking garage. "Hey, I have something to ask you." "Okay," Simone said, suddenly nervous at his tone. Jonathan parked and turned to face her. "I know we said we'd wait, that you needed time after Derek. But Simone, I love you. I love your strength and your compassion and your terrible habit of rescuing animals that nobody else wants. I love how you turn pain into purpose and how you never give up on anything. I want to spend my life with you if you'll let me." He pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside was a simple platinum ring with a single diamond. "Will you marry me?" Simone stared at the ring, her heart racing. Marriage. The word brought up complicated feelings, memories of white dresses and broken promises. But when she looked at Jonathan, she didn't see Derek. She saw a man who had supported her through everything, who had never tried to dim her light, who celebrated her success instead of resenting it. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Jonathan's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, right there in their parking garage, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony on the beach. Only close friends and family attended. Nicole was Simone's maid of honor, Patterson walked her down the aisle, and Dr. Chin performed a reading about second chances. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt, focused on love and commitment rather than spectacle. Simone wore a cream-colored dress that flowed in the ocean breeze. Her hair was adorned with fresh flowers. She looked radiant and healthy and nothing like the dying woman Derek had left behind. "I promise to support your dreams," Jonathan said during his vows. "I promise to celebrate your successes and comfort you during failures. I promise to never make you feel small or to resent your light. I promise to love you exactly as you are for as long as we both live. I promise to trust you," Simone said through happy tears. "I promise to let you in even when I'm scared. I promise to build a life with you that's filled with purpose and joy and rescue dogs. I promise to love you with the same fierceness I've brought to everything else I've done. You are my second chance, Jonathan. Thank you for waiting for me to be ready." They honeymooned in Greece, 2 weeks of sunshine and ancient ruins and late-night conversations about the future. They talked about children, about growing hope rising to serve more people, about the life they wanted to build together. "I want 3 kids, Jonathan said one evening as they watched the sunset from their hotel balcony. 3? That's a lot. You have 2 rescue dogs. I figure we're already outnumbered." Simone laughed. "Fair point. Okay, 3 kids. But only if we can handle it with the company and the foundation. We'll figure it out. We're good at adapting." Back home, life settled into a new normal. Simone balanced running her company with expanding the foundation. She spoke at conferences and universities, sharing her story and encouraging others to turn their pain into purpose. TechVision Solutions grew beyond her wildest expectations, now valued at over $3 billion. She still refused to sell. Hope Rising opened offices in 20 cities and formed international partnerships. They helped 10,000 patients in their second year, 20,000 in their third. Simone read application after application, approving grants and meeting patients whenever possible. One afternoon she got a letter that surprised her. It was from Brittany, Derek's former girlfriend. "I know you have no reason to care what happens to me," Brittany wrote. "But I wanted to apologize for my part in hurting you. I was young and stupid and I believed Derek's lies. I should have questioned why a married man was pursuing me. I should have had more integrity. I'm sorry." Simone read the letter twice, then filed it away with Derek's apology from years earlier. She didn't respond to this one either. Some things didn't need responses. 3 years after her last cancer treatment, Simone gave birth to a daughter. They named her Grace, because Grace was what had carried Simone through her darkest days. Grace was healthy and perfect, with Jonathan's eyes and Simone's determination. "She's going to change the world," Nicole said, holding the baby with tears streaming down her face. "She might," Simone agreed. "Or she might just live a happy, normal life. Either way, we'll love her." 18 months later, twin boys arrived. Noah and Joshua, loud and energetic from day one. The penthouse that had once felt too big now felt perfectly sized for their growing family. Simone stepped back from day-to-day operations at both TechVision and Hope Rising, hiring excellent CEOs to run things while she focused on strategy and family. Nicole continued as COO, essentially running both organizations while Simone was on maternity leave. "I can't believe you have 3 kids under 3, Nicole said during a particularly chaotic playdate. Grace was toddling around while the twins crawled everywhere, and both dogs followed them protectively. "Neither can I," Simone admitted. "Some days I miss when my biggest problem was just stage 4 cancer." They both laughed because if you couldn't laugh about it, what was the point? Derek's monthly checks continued arriving faithfully. 5 years of $1 payments, 5 years of being reminded of his mistakes. Simone heard through the grapevine that he and Cheryl had 2 children, that he was working as a regional manager for the storage facility company, that he had finally settled into a quiet, modest life. She felt nothing when she heard the updates. No satisfaction, no vindication, no anger. Just nothing. Derek was a person who existed somewhere in the world, someone who had once been important to her but wasn't anymore. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if he had stayed?" Jonathan asked one evening after the kids were in bed. "No," Simone said honestly. "Because if he had stayed, I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have Grace and Noah and Joshua. I wouldn't have built Hope Rising or expanded TechVision the way I did. Everything good in my life happened because Derek left." That's a generous perspective. It's a true perspective. I'm not grateful to Derek, but I'm grateful for the life his leaving allowed me to build. On the 6th anniversary of her cancer diagnosis, Simone organized a survivor reunion at Hope Rising's headquarters. Over 300 people attended, all cancer survivors who had received help from the foundation. They shared stories and tears and laughter. Patricia was there, healthy and glowing. Marcus brought his girlfriend. Angela had just completed her 5th marathon. Simone stood in the middle of the crowd, surrounded by people who had beaten the odds, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was her legacy. Not the money or the awards or the recognition. This room full of people who were alive because she had survived and decided to help others survive too. Dr. Chin found her during the party. "You've done something extraordinary, Simone. When I met you 6 years ago, I thought I was just treating another patient. I had no idea you'd end up changing the entire landscape of cancer care access." "I had great teachers," Simone said, hugging him. "You saved my life, Dr. Chin. Everything I built started with you believing I could survive. You saved your own life. I just provided the tools." That night, back at home with Jonathan and the kids asleep, Simone sat at her desk and looked at the photos from the event. Hundreds of smiling faces, people who had been given second chances. She thought about the girl she had been when she married Derek, naive and trusting and content with a small life. She thought about the woman she had become, a cancer survivor, a tech CEO, a philanthropist, a wife, a mother. Someone who had faced death and betrayal and had come out stronger. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. "You did good, my friend. Real good." Simone smiled and typed back, "We did good. Couldn't have done any of it without you." Another text came through, this one from Patterson. "Congratulations on 6 years cancer-free. You're a miracle, kid." "Not a miracle," Simone typed. "Just stubborn." She opened her laptop and checked her calendar for the next day. A board meeting in the morning, lunch with a potential donor, then home to have dinner with her family. A full life, a meaningful life, a happy life. Everything Derek had tried to take from her, she had built bigger and better without him. The best revenge, Simone had learned, wasn't hurting the people who hurt you. It was building a life so full of joy and purpose that their betrayal became irrelevant. It was proving that your worth never depended on their love. It was thriving instead of just surviving. Derek had divorced her thinking she was broke and dying. He had walked away thinking he was free. Instead, he had freed her. Freed her to become extraordinary, to help thousands of people, to find real love, to build a legacy that would outlive them all. And that, Simone thought as she closed her laptop and went to bed beside her husband, was the sweetest victory of all.